What if I told you that the most important financial decision you'll ever make has nothing to do with stocks, real estate, crypto, or starting a business? It has nothing to do with picking the right investment, nothing to do with timing the market. The most important financial decision is much simpler and much harder. It's the decision to spend less than you earn. That's it. And almost nobody does it. This is Chapter 10 of The Psychology of Money, Save Money. Now, I know what you're thinking. Save money? That's the big insight? I've heard this since I was 5 years old, and you're right, you have heard it. But Morgan's take on saving is completely different from anything your parents, your bank, or any financial advisor has ever told you. Most people think of saving as what's left over. You earn money, you pay your bills, you spend on what you want, and whatever's left, that's savings. Savings is the scraps, the leftovers, the afterthought. Morgan says, flip that entirely. Savings isn't what's left after spending. Savings is the gap between your ego and your income. Read that again. Savings equals income minus ego, not income minus expenses. Income minus ego. Because here's the truth. Past a certain level of basic comfort like food, shelter, healthcare, and transportation, almost every additional dollar you spend is driven not by need, but by desire. And most desire is driven by comparison. You don't need a bigger apartment. You want one because your colleague has one. You don't need a new car. You want one because yours feels embarrassing next to your neighbor's. The gap between what you need and what you spend is almost entirely controlled by your ego, by your desire to keep up, by your need to signal status. And Morgan's breakthrough insight is this. You don't need a specific reason to save. You don't need to save for something. A house, a car, and a retirement. You should save simply because life is unpredictable, and the future will throw things at you that you cannot currently imagine. Saving without a goal isn't aimless. It's the most strategically brilliant thing you can do, because a pile of money with no purpose attached to it is the most flexible asset in the world. It can become anything: an opportunity fund, an emergency cushion, a career change, a chance to say no. Let's look at our first story, the income illusion: why high earners are often broke. Let me start with a statistic that will shock you. According to a 2023 survey by Lending Club in the United States, 40% of people earning over $100,000 per year, that's roughly 85 lakhs, were living paycheck to paycheck. These aren't poor people. These aren't minimum wage workers struggling to survive. These are six-figure earners, engineers, lawyers, managers, doctors, who have nothing left at the end of the month. How? Because their spending rose to match their income, and then exceeded it. When they earned $60,000, they lived like they earned $60,000. When they got a raise to $80,000, they immediately started living like they earned $80,000. New apartment, new car, new restaurants, new subscriptions. Every raise was consumed by lifestyle inflation before it ever had a chance to become savings. This is what Morgan means by ego-driving spending. These people don't need to spend $100,000 a year. They were perfectly happy at $60,000, but their ego, their sense of what someone at their income level should look like, has expanded with every raise. And the result? A person earning $100,000 with zero savings is in a more precarious position than a person earning $40,000 with $50,000 saved, because the high earner has built a lifestyle that requires $100,000 to maintain. If they lose their job for even 2 months, they're in crisis. Let's look at our second story, the power of savings rate over investment returns. Here's something Morgan argues that completely changed how I think about money, and it's backed by simple math. Most people obsess over investment returns. They spend hours researching which stock will give them 15% instead of 12%. They debate index funds versus individual stocks. They chase hot tips, but Morgan shows that for the vast majority of people, especially in the first 10 to 20 years of building wealth, your savings rate matters infinitely more than your investment returns. Let me show you the math. Person A earns $80,000 a year, saves 5%. That's $4,000 per year, and gets a spectacular 12% return on investments. Person B earns $80,000 a year, saves 20%, that's $16,000 per year, and gets a mediocre 6% return. After 20 years, Person A saved $323,000 and person B saved $623,000. Person B, the one with half the investment returns, ends up with nearly double the wealth because they saved 4 times as much. Your savings rate is the one variable you have complete control over. You can't control the stock market. You can't control interest rates. You can't control the economy, but you can control how much of your paycheck you keep. And that variable is the most powerful lever in your financial life. Let me give you a very recent example. The UK cost of living crisis. What happens when a nation has no savings? Starting in late 2021 and escalating through 2022 and 2023, the United Kingdom experienced one of the worst cost of living crises in its modern history. Energy prices doubled, in some cases tripled. Food inflation hit 19%, the highest in 45 years. Mortgage rates surged from under 2% to over 6% almost overnight. For millions of British families, the monthly budget was suddenly blown apart. Bills that used to be manageable became unbearable. The average UK household saw their annual energy bill go from £1,200 to over £2,500. Some families were paying more in heating than in rent. And here's where Chapter 10 becomes devastatingly relevant. According to the Bank of England, before the crisis hit, nearly 1 in 4 UK adults had less than £100 in savings. Less than £100. Not 100,000, 100. When energy prices doubled, these families had zero buffer, zero flexibility, zero options. They couldn't absorb even one unexpected bill. They went straight from managing to crisis, with no step in between. Food banks across the UK saw record demand. The Trussell Trust, the UK's largest food bank network, distributed over 3 million emergency food parcels in 2023, a record. In one of the wealthiest countries on earth, families who had been earning decent salaries were showing up at food banks, not because they lost their jobs, but because they had spent everything they earned, saved nothing, and had no cushion when the world shifted. Now contrast that with families at the same income level who had been saving modestly. Families who had 6 months of expenses set aside. When energy bills doubled, they absorbed it. When mortgage payments jumped, they adjusted. It wasn't comfortable, but it wasn't catastrophic. They had breathing room. And here's the part that connects to Morgan's deepest point. Nobody predicted this specific crisis. Nobody in 2019 said, "I'm going to save money because energy prices will triple in 3 years." They couldn't have known. But the people who saved anyway, without a specific reason, without a target event, were the ones who survived. They saved not because they knew what was coming. They saved because they knew something would come. They just didn't know what. I want to share something that happened to me that made this chapter hit home. A few years ago, I had a month where everything went wrong at the same time. My laptop broke, my landlord raised the rent with 1 month's notice, and I had a medical bill I wasn't expecting. Total damage about $2,000 in unexpected expenses. In 1 month. Now, $2,000 isn't a fortune, but if I hadn't had savings, if I had been living paycheck to paycheck like I used to, then that month would have destroyed me. I would have gone into credit card debt. I would have panicked. I would have made desperate decisions. But because I had savings, I paid everything, felt stressed for about a day, but moved on. That was the moment I understood this chapter viscerally. Savings didn't make me rich. It made me calm. It gave me the ability to absorb a shock without it derailing my life. There are 3 takeaways from this chapter. First, automate your savings before you see the money. Set up an automatic transfer on payday. Before you spend a single rupee, dollar, or pound, move a fixed percentage into a savings or investment account. 10%, 15%, 20%. Whatever you can manage. Pay yourself first, not last. Second, fight lifestyle inflation ruthlessly. The next time you get a raise, a bonus, resist the urge to upgrade your lifestyle. Instead, keep your lifestyle exactly where it is and save the entire increase. If you were happy at your old salary last month, you can be happy at your old salary this month too. Third, save without a reason. Don't save for a house. Don't save for a car. Don't save for retirement specifically. Save because you don't know what's coming. Save because life will surprise you. That's Chapter 10, Save Money, the chapter that takes the simplest financial advice in the world and reveals why almost nobody follows it and why the few who do end up with more freedom, more options, and more peace than everyone around them. In the next video, we cover Chapter 11, Reasonable is Better Than Rational, and this one is a game changer. Hit like if this chapter spoke to you. Subscribe if you're on this journey with me. We're building real financial literacy here, chapter by chapter. And tell me in the comments, what percentage of your income do you currently save? No judgments, just honesty. Let's see where we all stand. See you in the next one.